It started with a shadow. Two of them, actually. November 18th, 1942. The Pacific sky was bright and cruel, the kind that made every mistake visible. A Japanese pilot scanning the horizon suddenly froze. There, glinting in the sun, were two silver streaks and two tails. Whatever those things were, they weren't supposed to be here. They weren't supposed to climb like that. For years, Japanese pilots had ruled these skies. The Zero was more than a plane. It was a legend. Light, nimble, unstoppable. American aircraft couldn't touch it. That was the story. That was the faith. And then, something new arrived. Twin engines roaring, slicing through the clouds, coming in high and fast. The Japanese pilot tried to rise and meet it, but his aircraft just couldn't follow. It stalled, it gasped, and in that split second, the myth cracked. The strange American fighter dove, then shot upward again like it was defying gravity. Guns flashed. 1-0 spiraled down in flames. Another barely made it home, its pilot too shaken to speak. The survivors didn't know what hit them. Literally, all they knew was that it wasn't supposed to exist. When word reached the ground crews, disbelief turned into unease. Some said it was two planes flying side by side. Others swore it was one with two tails, a machine that shouldn't even be able to turn that fast. The name spread fast through the squadrons. The twin-tailed devil. That was the day Japan realized the sky wasn't theirs anymore. But what they didn't know was that this was just the opening move. And the Americans were just getting started. Before those twin-tailed nightmares appeared, the Japanese had every reason to think the skies were theirs. For 2 long years, the Zero was a symbol of perfection. It was fast, it was light, and it could twist in the air like it was dancing. Pilots bragged that no American plane could even come close. They had dominated from Pearl Harbor to the Philippines. They were untouchable, divine, almost. The Zero wasn't just a machine. It was a statement, proof that Japan's spirit and craftsmanship could outfly anything the West built. Pilots believed it, command believed it, and every dogfight just reinforced the myth. To challenge that was basically heresy. But here's the thing about myths. They crumble the moment reality changes its mind. As Japan expanded across the Pacific, its pilots started noticing something odd. American planes were getting tougher, faster, and somehow smarter. They weren't falling for the same tricks anymore. The war gods in the sky were starting to bleed. Still, no one dared say it out loud. Even Saburo Sakai, Japan's golden ace, kept insisting that Japan would never lose air superiority. "Our planes are lighter, our men braver," he said. It sounded confident, but deep down, cracks were forming. Every pilot could feel it. And then came the first sightings of a strange silver aircraft, moving too fast to be chased. Some thought it was a new bomber. Others thought it was two fighters flying perfectly side by side. Command brushed it off. American propaganda. Yeah, that aged well, because soon enough, those whispers would turn into panic, and the Zero, once worshipped as the sky's undefeated sword, was about to meet something that didn't care about honor, tradition, or myths. But the Americans hadn't just built a better plane. They'd built something entirely different. Before the first lightning strike, there were only whispers, strange, confusing, impossible whispers. Japanese spotters began reporting flashes of light in the sky. 2 trails, side by side, vanishing before they could even scramble a response. Some claimed they saw an American plane with 2 tails. Others said it was a bomber that flew like a fighter. The stories didn't match, but they all agreed on one thing. Whatever it wasn't normal. Commanders laughed it off. Too heavy, too complicated. Americans don't build fighters like that. They trusted their Zero, the perfect weapon, born from balance and grace. To them, a twin-engine fighter sounded ridiculous. Heavy planes couldn't dogfight. Everyone knew that. At least, that's what they thought. But those reports kept coming. Recon teams spotted strange contrails far higher than any Zero could reach. Pilots spoke in hushed tones about hearing engines that didn't sound right. Deeper, rougher, louder. The kind of roar that made your stomach twist before your mind even registered fear. The Americans had vanished from the Pacific sky for weeks, but their engineers hadn't been idle. Lockheed had been cooking something the Japanese had never imagined. The P38 Lightning, 2 engines, 2 tails, 1 goal, to end Japan's reign above the ocean. Of course, none of that was known yet. On the ground, the Japanese command was too proud to believe in ghost stories. "It's impossible," they said. "No aircraft can climb that fast. It's a trick." But the pilots knew better. You can't mistake fear for imagination. And every time someone reported seeing that glinting silver figure high in the sun, they prayed it was just another mirage. Spoiler: it wasn't. Because soon those twin-tailed ghosts would come screaming out of the clouds over Guadalcanal, and all that laughter from the officers, it would die mid-sentence. And when the first lightning struck, Japan realized the rumors weren't rumors anymore. They were warnings. When the P-38 Lightning finally showed itself, it wasn't just another fighter. It was a machine from the future. 2 engines, twin tails, and a body that looked too big to be graceful. But the moment it hit the air, it moved like nothing anyone had seen. Fast, sharp, cold. It didn't just fight. It hunted. The Japanese pilots who first faced it didn't even realize what they were up against. They saw the sunlight flash off metal, heard the deep growl of twin Allison engines, and thought, bomber. So they climbed, expecting an easy kill. Big mistake. The bomber suddenly flipped, dove straight at them, and pulled up with a speed that ripped through the air like thunder. Then the guns opened up. 4.50 cals and a 20-millimeter cannon, all pointed through its nose. No spread, no warning, just precision. It didn't dogfight like the Zero. It didn't need to. It was built to kill before the enemy even got close. The Zero was a sword, elegant, deadly, up close. The Lightning was a sniper rifle, calm and clinical. The first Japanese reports made no sense. Plane with 2 tails climbs too high to intercept. Impossible acceleration. Not a bomber. One pilot swore it turned like 2 planes moving in sync, like a phantom that split in 2. Yeah, that phantom would soon become their worst nightmare. On the American side, the P-38 pilots couldn't believe their luck. They could finally fight without being outmatched. The Lightning's turbochargers let them soar higher than the Zero could dream of, and when the Japanese tried to follow, they stalled and fell like stones. The moment the first P-38 squadrons returned to Henderson Field, the pilots were grinning like they'd just cracked a code. And in a way, they had. The code to surviving the Pacific. The skies over Guadalcanal had a new sound now. That low, haunting thunder of twin engines. And for Japan, it was the sound of something worse than defeat. Change. But a machine is only as deadly as the people behind it. And the men flying the Lightning, they weren't heroes. They were something far more dangerous. The squadron had learned a brutal truth. Even the most advanced machines meant nothing without discipline, teamwork, and belief. Over the following weeks, the 339th evolved. The men learned to fly as one, to trust radar reports, to cover each other's tails. Their Lockheed Lightnings, once derided by some as too heavy for dogfighting, began to earn a fearsome reputation. By December 1942, those twin-tailed devils, as the Japanese pilots called them, had rewritten the balance over the Solomons. Missions once flown in terror now carried purpose. The pilots who had survived the first ambushes were no longer green. They were hardened, precise, and relentless. The documentary's narration would fade here into the rumble of engines, a P38 banking hard into the sun, tracers arcing through the haze. In the radio crackle, a voice, calm, clipped, unshaken, "Bandit at 3 o'clock. I have him." That moment, the calm in chaos, was what defined the new era of aerial superiority. From this point onward, the Lightning wasn't just a machine, it was the symbol of a turning tide. By early 1943, the lessons carved in the skies above Guadalcanal began to ripple outward through the Pacific. The 339th's combat reports, dense with altitude data, ammunition counts, and hard-won tactical notes, were poured over by squadrons from New Guinea to the Aleutians. The Lightning's reputation was changing fast. Once seen as too complex and unforgiving, it was now recognized as the ideal long-range hunter. From the steaming airstrips of the Solomons to the coral runways of the Gilberts, pilots began adopting what they called the Guadalcanal method: high-altitude interception, disciplined wing coordination, and dive speed exploitation. Those who survived Henderson Field became instructors, carrying not just knowledge, but ghosts. Footage from this period, if one were to see it in the documentary, would shift from the dark jungles of Guadalcanal to brilliant, cloud-streaked skies above Rabaul and Bougainville. P-38s ranged hundreds of miles over open ocean, their twin engines droning in harmony, their bellies armed with .50 caliber Fury and 20mm Resolve. The Lightning's speed and range made it a perfect spearhead for the Allied advance. It escorted bombers, strafed supply barges, and hunted down enemy reconnaissance planes. But perhaps its most decisive moment came in April 1943, during Operation Vengeance, the interception of Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, architect of Pearl Harbor. The kill was cold, clinical, and deeply symbolic. Guided by intelligence and executed by the 339th's sister squadrons, it was the ultimate proof that American air power had matured, from survival to precision, from chaos to command. As the war expanded, so did the myth. Japanese pilots began calling the Lightning Nihikoki, the two-plane, a ghostly silhouette that appeared from nowhere, struck without mercy, and vanished into the sun. For the men who flew it, the P-38 became more than a fighter. It was a promise that no enemy was beyond reach. When the P-38 reached Europe, it was entering a different war. Gone were the steaming jungles and coral runways, now ice bit at the wings over the Channel. The Luftwaffe was sharper, deadlier, and the Lightning's flaws emerged quickly. Cockpit heating failed, compressibility dives grew treacherous, and German flak turned every mission into a gauntlet. Yet it adapted. Twin engines meant twin chances. A wounded Lightning could still limp home. Pilots learned to use altitude, teamwork, and lightning-fast boom and zoom strikes. Escort missions over Germany proved the aircraft's worth long before the Mustang arrived. In the gun camera footage that survives, you can almost feel the difference. Colder light, cleaner kills, a mechanical rhythm replacing jungle chaos. The P-38 had matured into a weapon of precision, less myth, more machine, bridging the desperate beginnings at Guadalcanal to the confident skies over Europe. By 1945, the roar of the twin Allisons was fading into memory. The war had moved into its jet age, and the P-38, once the futuristic terror of the Pacific, was suddenly an artifact. In Europe, Mustangs took over escort duties. In the Pacific, Lightnings still struck deep into enemy territory, but their days were numbered. For the men who flew them, the Lightning remained something sacred, a machine that had carried them from the edge of defeat to the heart of victory. Many couldn't bear to see them scrapped, stripped for aluminum, left to rust in tropical airfields. Today, only a few survive, their engines still capable of that haunting asymmetric growl that once echoed across oceans. They stand as ghosts of a time when the sky itself decided the fate of empires, and when courage, steel, and innovation met in one silhouette, the twin-boom shadow of the P-38 Lightning. They called it the Lightning, fast, relentless, and ahead of its time. In its roar lived the fear of the hunted and the hope of the hunter. It began over the steaming jungles of Guadalcanal, where courage was measured in seconds, and ended in cold, high skies where the future waited on jet wings. Greater than the men who flew her grew old, but their stories never did. Each takeoff was a gamble, each return a quiet miracle. The world they fought for is different now, quieter, safer perhaps. But if you listen closely, above the hum of modern engines, the echo of the Lightning still cuts through the clouds. The war ended. The pilots came home, but the sky remembers.